Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the May 14th, 2026 of the edition of the Transportation Mobility Advisory Commission, the TransMAC. I want to welcome everyone here tonight to District 4. We are TransMAC. We are a citizen-led advisory board created by the citizens of Orange County to make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners on transportation investments. We also have the ability to review our past expenditures for efficiency and effectiveness. How have they worked for our transportation system here in Orange County? And also the ability to study future mobility innovations. How do we get ahead of the game with transportation here in Orange County and try to make everything better out on the roads for our citizens? So again, I want to welcome everyone here tonight. We are out here in District 4, which is my district. And you would think that means I live close to here, but it does not. I live on the opposite side of the district, so it still took me a good 40 minutes to get here. So even though we're here in my home district, not so close to home for me, but I am happy to be here this evening. Just to let everyone know, I always like to start these meetings with just a little bit of preview of coming attractions, what we'll be discussing here this evening. We're going to hear a presentation on air mobility from our Office of Innovation and Emerging Technologies. How do you beat traffic? Sometimes you just fly over it. We're also going to hear an update on our TransMAC study proposal from myself about an Avalon Park bike lane project that we proposed and we'll discuss here. I wish I had better news, but we'll talk about that a little later in the program here tonight. And we're also going to discuss our supplemental report on the recommendations we made to the Board of County Commissioners in March. A little bit of a follow-up on that discussion. And then we'll have time for member comments, and we'll receive updates from our liaison for TransMAC, and then we will call it an evening. So the first thing we're going to do here is get started with our Pledge of Allegiance. So if everyone would please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. And usually we start this district meeting with a welcome for our district commissioner, which is Maribel Gomez-Cordero. I know she is, I believe she is on her way. So as soon as she arrives here this evening, I'm sure, just like everyone else, she has to deal with traffic. So as soon as she gets in here, we'll get her come up to the lectern here, welcome us to District 4, and maybe she can talk about some of her thoughts and priorities for transportation here in District 4 and countywide. Until we get to that point, let's go ahead and get started with our public comment. Oh, okay, well, come right on up then. Would you like to speak on her behalf? Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much for being here on behalf of the commissioner. We'll miss her. We'll catch her the next time. Okay, so let's go right ahead to our public comment then. At this time, I have one public comment card I received ahead of time. But if anyone interested is a member of the public interested here in the audience would like to come in and deliver a public comment to this commission, we would love to hear from you. As soon as we get to our first pre-submitted card here, I'll open the floor to anyone else who wants to come up and deliver a public comment to this commission. It's something we're always interested in hearing from our residents, how they feel about their transportation system here. So let's go ahead and get started with Jim Mikes. And Mr. Mikes, if you can your name, address for the record, and you'll be given 3 minutes.
Yes, my name is Jim Mikes. I currently reside at 3716 West Roland Street in Tampa while I'm rebuilding my home that was destroyed by Helene. Okay. And I am the longtime counsel to benefactor to El Shaddai Christian Church. Pastor Acevedo, Nick Acevedo, is here with me. If there was any question you had, I understand this is just a comment section, and I'm trying to advise you on your advisory capacity. I sent an email with an attached letter, and I think that's been submitted to you. I also supplied hard copies of that, we are trying to make you aware, as the mobility and the transportation side of the county, to be aware of what we believe is long been intended to be the development of the former Meadow Golf Course, closed 25 years ago. And in 2007, I acquired the entity that had the ownership of that and BVL, and then I have, with Pastor Acevedo, we have been, with his millions of dollars of maintenance and keeping it looking beautiful as compared to other courses around. But it's time to get it developed. And now with the Live Local Act and with the TOD that we have there, the two do come together, and we're proposing a development that will have affordable housing right at the station. We're also suggesting, if you look at my plan, that the county has a very attractive 19-acre mitigation parcel, and the Orange County Public School has 12 acres directly across from the station, right on Orange. We're trying to making you aware that those opportunities exist for the county to now develop with some form of developer going through some request for proposals to do a PPP with a private developer for that kind of use, enhancing government housing, affordable government housing, along with our proposed housing. We are prepared to take up to 40 acres of the south portion of the golf course and turn it into what is necessary for retention and to place a new mitigation parcel so that the county can take advantage of that very desirable piece right on the station. That now brings mobility justice for the commuters. This was intended to be a commuter station all along the history of Sunrail, and if you look at our plan, we have shown up in one of the corners the plan that was actually shown that this would be connected to the airport, and it's time for that to happen. There are ways to get it done. We don't have to wait for Brightline, the Sunshine Corridor to take place. It's time that you can help and push the county to be doing that. I am open at any time to talk. I'm very pleased that Brett Blackadar is here. He will be not in terms of the land use, but in terms of the stormwater and the potential movement of that mitigation parcel. But you can now create a real TOD mobility transportation focused development that doesn't exist anywhere else in the state. This could be it. We'd appreciate you assisting us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marcus. Thank you for being here.
Any questions, or are the pastors also here?
Thank you so
Otherwise,
much.
We'll leave here.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And we also received your email correspondence as well, so thank you for reaching out to us. Appreciate it. And I know I think we can all say we're all big supporters of transit-oriented development on here on this board. I think you can go out on a limb and say that. So thank you for being here. Would any other members of the public who have not yet speak out or public speaker card like to address the commission at this time? Okay, so this time I'll close the public record. And I mentioned we also have the opportunity to submit public comments. If you can't come here to the meeting or not comfortable speaking in a public setting, you can always submit a public comment ahead of time out of our website, which is www.octransmac.com. Elizabeth, I think I'm right. All right, so someone will fact check me on that and we'll get back to it. But we'd love to hear public comments. We are a citizen-led commission, so we always appreciate hearing the experiences of members of the public help us guide our work as a commission. Okay, so we're going to move on to our next item on our agenda, which is the consent agenda. So the first thing, only thing on our consent agenda tonight is the approval and execution of the minutes of the April 9th, 2026 TransMAC meeting. Did everyone have an opportunity to review the minutes, and did anyone note any additions, deletions, edits to the minutes?
Move to approve.
Okay. Move to approve. And I'll second. Motion to approve the minutes by Member Hoare, seconded by the chair. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right. Minutes are approved. Okay, we are moving right along into our discussion agenda, into our air mobility presentation from the Office of Innovation and Emerging Technologies. There's been a lot of conversation. We talked about this a lot at our last meeting a little bit. We had the Greater Orlando Aviation Authority came and speak to us all the improvements that are going on at the Orlando International Airport. They're getting ready for air mobility. I know it's a big topic at the state legislature as well, so I think it's a perfect opportunity for us to hear about what we're doing in Orange County to prepare for air mobility. So I would like to invite the representatives to come up and have a conversation with us.
Thank you, Chair. My name's Lee Peters. I'm with the Innovation and Emerging Tech Office with Orange County Mayor Jerry Deming's office. Tonight we wanted to basically talk about our feasibility study. We're going to go over a brief overview and then talk about our planning activities and then our key next steps to keep in mind whenever we talk about identifying potential vertiport integration throughout the county. A little behind there.
Or over there. Not the greatest visibility for the members of the commission, but we do have it here on the left here from the commission if you want to strain your necks to take a look.
I apologize for that.
Oh, not your fault whatsoever. Go ahead.
So advanced air mobility is the next generation of aviation with the rise of electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicles, or eVTOL vehicles, that carry 4 to 6 passengers at a speed of up to 200 miles per hour at an elevation of 1,000 to 3,000 feet. Because of this relatively short range, there's a need for vertiports where they can take off and land. So this is the focus of the study and identifying areas that might be ideal for that. This infographic shows the various use cases for the eVTOLs. Passenger service is certainly one of the main use cases. However, there are others such as fire rescue, healthcare, cargo services, and etc. Even though its technology is still emerging, it's receiving a lot of strong federal and state attention due to the potential transportation and economic impacts. FDOT continues to establish its AAM network, the initial one being the one along the I-4 corridor in blue, and then eventually it'll go along both east and west coast of Florida. And right in the middle of the map there, you see the SunTrax facility, which the FDOT originally built for connected and automated vehicles, kind of a test bed for that technology. But as this rose, now they're going to extend that into SunTrax Air, which would be a evaluation site, testing site for these vehicles. Here you'll see a table that shows the key AAM components for stakeholders. Our role as local government focuses on issues such as land use compatibility, community engagement, and utility integration, even though not really a utility integration because we don't run a electric utility. But even as we speak tonight, a lot of the OEMs are developing portable charger solutions so that they can actually fly with their chargers, and they're liquid cooled, so they charge the vehicles very quickly, sometimes in as little as 10 minutes. So that, we're hoping if that happens, that'll take some strain off of our grid and ease up our conversations with OUC and Duke Energy. The integration of AAM into urban areas raises several issues due to the downwash from engines, specific height requirements for takeoff and landing. We're also aware of issues such as property rights, privacy, noise, and probably one of the most important is equitable access for our residents. So we're doing further studies and continuing to monitor that. When you see this map here, it shows the height requirement and the width and the height that is required for a vehicle to take off. So if it's on a surface level, there's a lot to think about when you think about this going over a residential area or over an adjacent property. So we're working hard to work through some of that with the help of Kurt and team. No surprise, while we're getting all this attention, we feel like the pretty girl in school. We got 1.5 million residents in Orange County. I drive with all the tourism, 75.3 million annual visitors a year, the second largest convention center in the country. So this is something that we're already gearing up for this AAM development activity. Over the past few months, we've had several exercises with our our internal team, so public works, permitting, planning, zoning, to talk about where these things were the best way to put them throughout the county. So currently, industrial districts, they are allowed to have these by right. Our current code allows in agricultural, rural, and commercial districts by special exception. So we're working through those zoning overlays to make sure that we do the right thing there in terms of where we put these and the best use for these. This is a quick table. I know this one's even smaller than the other ones, but it's basically this permitting zoning use. It shows that, they're at the bottom where vertiports, heliports, and seaplane operations are permitted, and industrial areas only. Everything else would be by special exception. So this slide shows our engagement that we've had as early as this week. We had a FDOT symposium at Embry-Riddle University in Daytona Beach, where we met with folks from FDOT, GOA, and heard a lot of the leaders in this area, even OEMs in the area, to discuss what's happening there, and we'll continue to do that as we complete the study. And with that said, I'll give it up to Kurt Ostradka from the VHB, and he'll go through the methodology and frameworks for the study.
Thank you, Lee. Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Kurt Ostradka. I'm a principal at the VHB. Our business address is 225 East Robinson in Orlando. So we're here to talk through the methodology or the next steps of how we are examining this new form of mobility within the county. We have a four-step process looking at the regulatory requirements at both state and federal levels, as well as understanding the county's existing systems. I'm later going to show you how we've started to map out where potential vertiports could take place within the county, and tell you about our next steps for the study. A couple important notes I want to make, and just because you probably can't read them, I'll say them out loud. The county's primary role in this is going to be regulating land use and zoning, so where a vertiport or a vertipad can occur or not occur within the county. The county has no regulatory authority over airspace. That's exclusively by the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA, which means that the county cannot tell a operator which direction to go or what hours they can operate in. So that's exclusively within FAA. So we recognize that residents are going to be interested in that. That's just not something within the county's ability to regulate. Aviation noise is also one of the biggest complaints that comes up for all general aviation. We are told by industry that the eVTOLs will be much quieter because they are powered by electricity rather than conventional engines. But that's not been proven yet. There's a manufacturer claim, so that needs to be proven. But in any case, the county's current code precludes the county from regulating aviation-related noise that is operated in accordance with federal laws and regulations. So essentially, if aviation is operating within the decibel level of federal regulation, then the county cannot enforce it anyway. Okay. Finally, there are 653 parcels within the county today under the current Orange County Code that allow vertiports by right today. So that means Planning and Zoning Commission could receive an application next month for a vertiport, and that would have to be considered by them as well as the Board of County Commissioners. There's also 4,355 parcels that would allow it as a special exception. So as Mr. Peters said, those would be agricultural and some commercial designations. So this means it's important for the county to begin planning and understanding the potential impacts for vertiports today, even though the manufacturers believe that they won't have commercialized operations until maybe 2027, 2028. It's still important for to get the house in order ahead of time. All right, let me tell you a little bit about the analysis we went through. And again, one of these really hard to read maps, tables, but I'll make it easy for you. If a zoning district, again, in the current, in effect, Orange County Code allows for a vertiport by right today, so in one of the 5 industrial designations, we gave that a 5-point score. By special exception, so agriculture, commercial districts, gets a 3-point score because there is a pathway for a vertiport application. All other parcels were not scored and were excluded from the geospatial analysis. From there, we also looked at environmental considerations and connectivity and transportation access, which I think is one of your main interests. So if a parcel was within 10,000 feet of a solid waste facility, because those tend to attract birds, it was automatically excluded. And likewise, if it was fully within a wet plain, a floodplain, or one of the county's environmental conservation areas or designations, it was also excluded for those reasons. Now, because an eVTOL or AAM service will only take you from point to point, there is a last mile consideration of that. So what we wanted to do was look at the potential for enhanced suitability of a vertiport location by looking at existing or planned multimodal connections. So we would provide a 2-point score for any parcel that's within a half-mile buffer of one of the 2 Sunrail stations that's located within unincorporated Orange County. And I should note that we only scored parcels within unincorporated county, not within City of Orlando or any other cities. So the map may look a little bit sparse, but that's because, again, we were only looking at unincorporated county. So we provided that scoring for multimodal access to show that these sites would potentially be more suitable for a vertiport because it allows potential passengers to take a train or a Lynx bus or something like that to get to their final destination. This will not be going to your doorstep. A lot of people like to say it's the Jetsons, but the rocket ships came right to George's doorstep. You will have to go to a vertiport or a vertipad in order to do this. And as Mr. Peters and I were at the symposium this week, this will start at the airport. This will start at existing general aviation sites, but there is the potential, as we showed in that first slide, that this could go with an industrial site. So that's why it's important to plan for this ahead and understand what the potential impacts of that could be. They did say at the conference that while they know that this will start at general aviation sites, they called it the golden goose. They want to be in city centers. They want to provide new mobility options where they don't exist today. So that's what the market, the people that want to make money off of this, see this going into dense urban areas. But it won't start like that. It'll start surface level at general aviation airports or perhaps at MCO. All right, so this shows the parcels within Orange County that were either a by right or special exception. I'm going to click through this because it'll narrow down and the pattern will become a little bit more clear. Here's the half-mile buffers from Lynx stops, Lynx super stops, Sunrail stations. There's only, as you know, there's only 2 within unincorporated Orange County, so that's Meadow Woods and Sand Lake Road. And then we also excluded anything that was within environmental conservation area or within that 10,000-foot buffer from a solid waste facility. So what we're doing is we're kind of winnowing it down into a heat map. And this has changed a little bit since we submitted this presentation. But essentially the color that is brighter yellow, represents areas that have by right development rights, as well as what we would consider enhanced mobility cases. So it's within that half-mile buffer of some kind of existing or planned transportation asset. And then the areas that are, say, kind of the darker, I don't know, prune color, would allow a vertiport by right or by special exception, but are not connected to multimodal areas right now. So we are still working through this map, kind of tweaking it to make sure that that we've got all the data loaded in correctly. The purpose of the map is not to dictate where we think vertiport operations should go. It's not like a travel demand model like that. It shows where they could potentially occur, again, based on the land use rights. And that is a tool that allows the county to start doing some proactive planning and saying, you know, maybe we need to adopt, say, some kind of a buffer from a neighborhood if it's adjacent to a vertiport area that is, you know, has potential for that. We're also looking at the iDrive Community Redevelopment Agency or area, which has a very specific clause within the overlay district that prohibits helicopter commercial enterprises, helitours, or similar uses. So this actually means, and as understood by the county attorney's office, that advanced air mobility could not operate or put a vertiport in the iDrive area based upon that. Now, somebody could apply for it and plead their case to the various boards and Board of County Commissioners. That if anybody has that right to do so. So that remains to be seen if that will occur. But as of right now, the area with the kind of greatest concentration of not only jobs but tourism components has an existing prohibition on helicopter type uses, with the exception of, the Lockheed parcel and some of the kind of industrial parcels on the east side there. Apologies for the small map and facility. All right, so again, we're not here to be necessarily cheerleaders for the industry. We're not trying to sell you an eVTOL. We're trying to help the county understand what some of the market pressures are that we need to be proactive and plan for. Mr. Peters mentioned the federal interest. Florida was one of 8 awardees of a pilot program designation from US DOT. So they were selected in March of this year to accelerate the introduction of eVTOL testing within this area. And they were supposed to, or the awardees are supposed to have vehicles up and testing within 90 days of when they signed their agreement. I don't know if the agreements have been signed yet. We're not first party to that. We are trying to coordinate with those parties like GOA that are a part of it, but we don't have that information at this time. But it is very possible that one of these could be, not in commercial testing, but testing within 90 days from that point in March. All right. And then I think you heard last month, I heard from GOA, so they do have plans for a vertiport somewhere on their property. It could be East Airfield. It could be near Terminal C. It could be a different location. I think they're still trying to see what FDOT and what FAA will do. But it is their intent to introduce that to GOA. So these are things that are happening independently, but within the county. Which is why the county wanted to do this feasibility study to help, the board and citizens understand the potential implications. All right, so just some key takeaways from the study so far. We hope to have it complete by the end of next month and present to the Board of County Commissioners at that time. But you could see from the heat map some of the initial suitability sites. And I forgot to mention, the reason we drew the heat map in that way, so it's kind of like wavy lines, soft edges instead of specific parcels, was because those are private properties. And the county didn't want to give the impression that it was going to be doing something with somebody's land without their participation or consent. So the intent of the heat map is to show potential vertiport sub-areas rather than parcel-specific maps. So some of the areas that were, that showed as highly suitable were the Lockhart Corridor near Florida Mall, near Sand Lake Road Sunrail Station, both West Colonial and East Colonial Union Park, Holden Heights just south of the city of Orlando, Aloma Goldenrod south of UCF, Pine Castle, and then the large area of industrial sites that's centered on 528 and the Turnpike, I think within this district here. Another key note that we need to do some planning for is that most of our land development codes today are really oriented towards addressing a large airport that was built in the 1940s. So that's why you have building heights restrictions around airports. That's why there's noise contours that prevent certain uses like schools or churches from being built within those noise contours. Here we're going to have the inverse effect, where a vertiport could be put near or proximate to an existing neighborhood. So in this case, the vertiport is the new activity rather than the buildings, the private development being the new activities, which means that the county is going to have to develop some meaningful and thoughtful policies for how to address that inverse situation. Which will probably include, mapping potential development heights or air rights for all those parcels around the potential vertiport areas. And then it's worth noting that the Orange Code, which we know is still hung up and not approved, it's pending resolution, fingers crossed on that, that would, because of the kind of more flexible development rights that are conveyed within that, it would expand the pool of properties that would be have potential vertiport development rights. So expanding to over 1,100 parcels that would be a permitted or semi-by right use, or 7,520 parcels that would be special exception. All right, so we're here because we want your input. The study's not done yet, so we would appreciate your comments and feedback on what else you all represent a different district. How we can incorporate your comments and feedback and your general knowledge as being part of this commission into the study. We are going to continue using that heat map I showed you to try to prioritize what we think are the 3 most suitable areas for vertiports, and then do some proactive planning for, are there neighborhood preservation needs there? Are there, other kinds of policies we need to put in place? And then we'll compile a report over the next several months, so that'll include that framework to make sure everybody knows the rules of the road, or I guess the rules of the air, between the local, state, and federal regulations, looking at how we can have compatibility between vertiports and adjacent uses, and any kind of avoidance minimization or mitigation strategies we would recommend the county consider adopting into code. We have an upcoming presentation with the iDrive CRA board on June 3rd, and then, as I mentioned, a final presentation to the Board of County Commissioners on June 30th. And with that, we'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you so much for the presentation. As this board is primarily, concerned with transportation issues and moving people, I have a question about, I know you said primarily early on it will be more of an industrial, maybe a cargo type focus, but you said the private companies see this as being used in urban locations, to move people. Focusing on Orange County, what do you see as the locations? You're going point to point. So what are different points in Orange County that are really going to, people will be using air mobility to get there? I can see obviously if you're going to the airport to take another trip, that's obviously an easy use case. But I find it a little hard to believe that someone is going to take air mobility to go to a Sunrail station. Maybe if the Sunshine Corridor exists, you could say you get on the train there, especially if that connects eventually to Tampa, you could see that happen. But so I just can you explain to me, like, I think I'm a little confused, like, about what are the locations within 2 points within Orange County that you see people, like, actually using this to get, I want to get this place, that place, if that question makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. I would speculate that people will use it from the airport, as they do have plans for that, to go elsewhere, perhaps outside of the county. So this isn't meant just for a network of internal stops. I would speculate people would go to Port Canaveral. I would speculate they would go to Tampa. So we're not doing a travel demand model for this. We're looking simply at the land use rights where it exists today, where a entrepreneur, a vertiport proponent, could request, based on their land use rights, or to request a change in their zoning to put a vertiport in. So I would also speculate that a vertiport proponent would want to take people to the entertainment areas within the county. There are some challenges to that, as I mentioned, with the iDrive overlay district. So it will be up to the OEMs original equipment manufacturers or vendors, and the operators to kind of set what they think pricing should be for those trips. And then it'll be up to the market of whether or not somebody chooses to pay for a trip from say the airport to the theme park instead of an Uber or a rental car. But I would speculate that would give people more choices to entertain.
And one thing that a little concerned me about the presentation is it seemed like the parcels scored better if they were near existing public transit locations, especially Sunrail stations. And we heard a little bit about TOD earlier briefly. And if a vertiport in an area that is suited or available for public transit is going to impose height restrictions on some of the buildings that surround our public transit, where we could be increasing density to provide ridership to those public transit locations, how do we see those two things interacting with each other if the vertiport is going to affect our ability to build more housing near our transit stations? Yes,
great question. As a follow-up, we would recommend that the county do a air rights, kind of build-out analysis, because today, if you were to apply for a vertiport, you would submit a FAA Form 7481, and it would you would have to draw a site plan, and you would have to draw show on the site plan all surrounding structures within a certain radius and the heights of existing structures. So that doesn't take into account the air rights of structures that have not been built yet. And so that is because this is novel, this hasn't really been done before. That's why the county is taking that step now to understand what the development rights could be around potential vertiport areas, so that those issues could potentially be headed off. I mentioned that the county can't control the direction of flight. That's something that FAA will regulate. It is kind of based on prevailing wind and presence or absence of obstructions within the air. And we did not want to try to guess at this point because we're dealing with the entire county. So if we were to draw a 360-degree arc around all these properties and use those, they're called imaginary surfaces, it would actually look like we were imposing development restrictions on much of the county adjacent to those sites. So bottom line is these will all have to be evaluated at a case-by-case basis to see the approach vectors, the development rights, and then try to work it out with the applicant, between the county, the applicant, FDOT, and FAA. Now there's an 8-step process to build any kind of airport, heliport, seaport within the state. It starts with local zoning. An applicant or a proponent needs to prove that they have local zoning that would allow for that use. Then they ask for that FAA letter, and then the FDOT is the regulatory authority that takes the next, I think, 6 steps after that. So this won't happen overnight in a vacuum without a lot of regulation and coordination.
Okay, great. Thank you. Questions from my fellow commissioners?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One thing that I did think of, based on your question, is the kind of productive impact that we could have, say, in the rural areas where you don't want to create a lot of infrastructure that disrupts the land. There is the potential then to offer some kind of effective transportation to say, hey, we can get you rapidly to the city center, right, through this EV. So whereas maybe if you're living out in a rural area and you might say, hey, you know what, once a month, twice a month, I'd really like to go downtown and walk around, that could be an effective solution for those citizens, and that might be something that we want to consider long term. But one thing that really jumped out at me immediately is, and sorry, it's really hard for me to look at you because the really bright light is behind you.
How's this?
It is rough. It is rough.
Yeah, I'm sorry if that was weird because the whole time I've been trying to look at you and then I noticed I'm like having spots in my eyes. So all that to say, like, what kind of considerations have been made regarding anticipating crash safety? Because we know once you hit some kind of certain amount of vehicles in the air, some amount of those vehicles are going to fail just by the numbers. And then if we're talking about falling vehicles in our city streets instead of cars that break down and simply stop where they're out on the ground, that's a radically different safety scenario. Could you help me grasp, just as a total novice, like, where is the starting point even for that conversation?
Yes, thank you. The starting point is that there are no vehicles today that are currently certified by the FAA. So they're going through that safety certification process. They've been going through it for multiple years now, probably since 2021 or 22. There's also a European equivalent of FAA called EASA that some of the overseas manufacturers are working with them as well. But there is a level of federal safety security. The new pilot program will allow this testing, because it's a federal partnership, to happen before certification, but regular commercialized service will not take place until after the aircraft are certified by FAA, which, as I understand it, is a similar process to a Boeing or an Airbus.
Sure. So essentially for now, there's not really much of a conversation to have because it's controlled by federal authorities that are not really giving the information out or saying, hey, this is where it's at. They're essentially reviewing it.
Yes, sir.
So that's helpful. So then the other part that jumps out to me is I try and look at all these opportunities for innovation and say, where is there economic development here, especially that we can act on and prioritize for areas of our county that have historically been more disenfranchised from that economic opportunity. So I look at this and I say, all right, there's obviously the hard manufacturing of the aircrafts and the components and the transformation of raw materials into those components and the creation of software that then allows these technologies to function effectively. From your perspective, would you say there is any type of specificity to what we might look towards for saying, hey, you know what, if we were really trying to create jobs here that could be kind of deployed on demand, and we'd say, this is an area where we want to create jobs, is there any aspect of this kind of new development and all these opportunities where it might be effective for us to focus more of our energy on saying what's possible with this specific part?
I'd answer yes. Both FDOT and GOA are using kind of that economic development and workforce development as one of the reasons why they are racing to be one of the first in the nation to capture this. I believe GOA wants to attract manufacturing and testing, and that's what FDOT is trying to do at Suntrex as well. So with that, manufacturing and testing brings new workforce or upskilling of existing workforce. So I think that is something that is definitely a potential Orange County can capture as well. I should note, on the economic standpoint, we are not at this time recommending that any public money be spent to develop a vertiport. Not without an operator and a developer as part of the agreement. So this is not build it and hope that they come. We did do a economic impact study for the city of Orlando several years ago to look at a vertiport on top of Geico Garage. I think that, did they change the name of it? I think it's still called that. Okay. And we told them, don't build it. It's not worth it at this time for the cost of the facility. We did the economic study to look at potential wage growth and sales tax and those kind of impacts. And yes, there is an impact over a 20-year period, but not enough to offset the costs of self-developing. Yeah. So we're not advocating for public money for vertiports right now. It's more of understanding the county's role if a private entity wishes to develop.
Thank you. I mean, that's all great information. It sounds like there's certainly a conversation for the county to explore between FDOT and GOA about what those plans are for attracting the economic development potential, because the more that we can situate towards that, the more it will be an easy path to bring more opportunities here. I appreciate you sharing all that info.
Can I follow up real quickly on that last point? So you're talking about not having any public money at this point being used for vertiport development. So do we see this primarily, or even maybe solely, as something that's going to be used by private enterprise, or will there be a public component, a government service component to, advance air mobility the way we're envisioning it right now?
Try to break that down. So the Florida legislature just authorized through a House bill and a Senate bill authorizes FDOT to build public vertiports to fund them. I think up to 80% if there's a revenue share, or up to 100% if not. So it's possible that the county could partner with FDOT for funding, but we think this is primarily driven by the private sector.
Okay. And on the safety point, which is a good point that Zach raised. And you said it's still, a lot of this stuff is still being studied and it's still being looked at and developed. Would you say, based on your review of what is going on, especially at the federal level, that whatever safety regulations they're looking to put in place, will they be kind of akin to what we consider with normal aviation, normal commercial passenger jets? Will be something similar as to that level of rigor that makes it the safest way to transport yourself in the country is via air?
Well, I sure hope so, but that's outside of my realm of expertise.
Okay. All right. Additional questions. Go ahead, Rod.
Yeah, part of me is just excited. The Jetsons. I can take off out of my garage, go visit my kids across the country, and do that. At the same time, we have pilots with thousands of years of experience. That we have the FAA crash with in DC, the airport. Experienced pilots, thousands of hours of experience. We just had the incident at Orlando Airport, 25-year employee. These types of mishaps, to think that the aspect of licensing, getting people on board, and regardless of commercial or not, flying, and then we've got the shortage of air traffic controllers. How is this going to manage it? So it kind of crosses both ways for me, and somebody said, holy cow, Eric's going to fly one? Oh, I don't know. Even worse, I'm going to fly one.
What are you saying about my navigation abilities, Rod? You'll know.
Not at all, but I mean, it's very, moving forward and looking at the aspect, next thing you know, beam me aboard, Scotty. That might be the next piece of doing it, but it scares me to think that we're putting more things in the air, given our current situation. On the other hand, if we're not moving forward, we're not progressing. So thank you.
Yes, I'll follow that up by saying that these are envisioned as autonomous aircraft in the future, but will be piloted in the short term with human pilots.
And I had one other point I was so excited that Air Care was going to be putting in a landing site at Station 5 at Jason Dwelly, right next to the Northwest Recreational Complex in Apopka. And we had hundreds of neighbors come out screaming and yelling, so now it's at Station 4, which means it's anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes before a helicopter can arrive for a critical injury at the park. And yet, the neighbors came out screaming. It was unbelievable.
I just had a question on the economics of it. If I don't know if you could walk me through it. Like, what is the average cost per hour to operate one of these vehicles?
I don't have that information. That's you can read the publicly traded manufacturer claims, but we don't have a way to benchmark or validate those at this time. The industry likes to say that this will be similar once it gets to scale of taking an Uber Black, which I've never taken an Uber Black, but I understand it to be the premium version of Uber. So that is what they hope to get to once it is at scale. I don't think the county is here, using the word affordability, that this is going to be affordable for all, because we are not in control of their business model, how many passengers they take per day, their tempo, their operations. What this does is provide another form of mobility. So, I don't think we can speculate today on what the cost will be.
So just so I could relate it, by chance, do you know the average cost of a helicopter per hour, like the operating cost?
I do not know that.
Oh, okay. I was just trying to relate it to something currently, so I appreciate it.
So I take it that the helicopter tours that we have in iDrive, are they exempt from the iDrive restriction? Because they're there. So
Yes, I believe that must be grandfathered in, because the overlay district was adopted. I wish Alyssa was here; she would know. Recently, within the last 10 years, I believe that the helicopter tour that you're referring to preceded that.
were you able to get some information from their business model? Because they're pretty successful. And I'm a links operator, so I do number 42. So here on this board, I'm the one that has been exposed to the helicopters because they land very close to my bus. But they're very successful. The tourists love it. So I take it that if there's any future to this, it still be in the iDrive corridor and the airport. There's a market to that, but I just don't see it for the affordable option of moving from point A to point B unless you're willing to pay for it as a premium. So I'll encourage you to get more information from those providers. They do a pretty good job. They've been doing that every single day, and I haven't heard of any crashes. They're experts into that, and they seem to be, they know the model. I take it that they cannot fly over Disney property, like, for example, to Disney Springs.
I don't know factually whether or not they can fly over Disney by restriction or by agreement.
Okay.
But that is a great idea to reach out to them for some more information on costs and revenue as a comparison.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Are there conversations that the county's involved in or aware of, like with Disney or any of those, large theme park operators to have locations for vertiport, within their property?
We have had discussions with the theme park operators that are represented on the iDrive CRA board, and they have not been, I don't want to say not transparent, but they have not told us whether or not they intend to apply for a vertiport. I don't believe that their current zoning within the iDrive area would allow for it anyway. If the Orange Code were to go into effect, the new one, then I believe both SeaWorld and Universal would be considered the T6 transect, which would allow for it as a exception. So there would be a approval pathway they could go to the county for, but there's still the overlay district, which today prohibits helicopter use. So there's, again, this won't happen overnight and in a vacuum.
But the county is the one who writes the rules for the overlay district, right? So if they wanted to change that, we could just change it, right?
Well, it would have to go through a public hearing process.
Right.
Yes.
Right. But it's the county's rule, so the county could change it.
The county could petition it to the Board of County Commissioners to change it.
Right. Okay. Go ahead.
I did an internet search, $400 to $5,000 an hour for a helicopter, all in, gas, depending upon the model.
Yeah. I don't think this is going to be certainly a mass transit option anytime in the near future. What is the you mentioned like Tampa, possibly connections to those. So what are, I know none of these I don't know if vehicles are in that word, air mobility devices have been approved yet. What is the expected like range though? How far can these things actually go on a charge?
Yeah, we understand 150 to 200 miles. There's also longer range and shorter range, but I think that's a good kind of rule of thumb, depending on the mission.
Okay, so is also the county having any conversations with other local governments, county governments that would be within that range, say, Tampa, Hillsborough? Are we talking to them? Because we could see obviously citizens from Orange County want to go there or vice versa. Do you know if any of those conversations are occurring yet between governments?
The county has participated in the state's AAM working group, and I believe has joined the Advanced Air Mobility Association. Is that right? So it is in communication and coordination with other local governments, but the county's role is not to develop plans for flight paths or point-to-point service between the county and another county. It's to either enable or not enable the vertiport itself.
Okay.
I actually, that brings up another question. Can you anticipate any ways that vertiports and eVTOLs could potentially interrupt or deprioritize the development of other modes of transit? Like for a place like Orange County, where we're essentially chomping at the bit for the last 2 decades about when we're going to get proper public transit and bus rapid transit corridors, and we want the commuter rail to run more, and we also want transport. I forget how to even call it, the trains that do like what buses do. What are the ways that this could potentially come into town and say, well, if we're already waiting too long for this stuff, could this make us wait longer?
Mm-hmm. I could speculate that given the state's high level of interest in this at this time, including the federal designation, I could speculate that the state may prioritize funding for this over other modes. But again, that's my speculation based upon their interest in the technology.
Yeah, sounds like this is like another piece getting introduced into our incredibly complex puzzle, where our local land serves a role for the state's purposes that we kind of have very little insight on, and then we're left holding the bag. And maybe we need to take a very defensive position with this as the county to make sure that we're not being further exploited. Because when I look at our community and think about the fact that we have all this development on State Road 50 where all these commercial vehicles are constantly running, those two ideas don't mix very effectively. Mm-hmm. And if we're going to get turned into some giant commercial corridor for EV tolls, then we need to be ahead of that to make sure that it's not going to cost us at the same time our bus rapid transit or all of these solutions that we're essentially, decades late on.
Yeah, and I might just flip how you said be defensive to say we're proactively planning.
Sure, sorry, right. Like you have to communicate it in a different way than me, right? Like, sorry, I didn't mean to set you up in any way.
No, but proactively planning for the future so another entity doesn't plan the county for it.
Yeah, thanks for offering the better language.
Anything else from members of the commission? Any other questions or comments? Okay, great. Thank you so much for joining us tonight and explaining. I look forward to seeing the presentation at the Board of County Commissioners on June 30th. Is this that presentation? Will that just be kind of a work session, or do you know if there's any sort of action that's being anticipated by the County Commission on that date?
No, that would be a work session.
Where's like acceptance of the study? Maybe is that kind of what? Okay, great. Well, I'll be looking forward to that and hearing what they have to say as well.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us here this evening. Very, very interesting. I take all your points, Zach. I will say, I do like the idea that at least the county is here early on this. 100%. So that is actually very, exciting to me, or I'm happy to see that we are trying to think about this now as it's really starting to kind of explode. And get
Definitely want to make sure that I communicate explicitly that I am not surprised to see the county here staying ahead of the game, not pretending like, oh yeah, this will just work out on its own. Right?
But I take your point. I mean, two of my biggest
we have
concerns
great staff
with this. Oh no, yeah. Two of my biggest concerns are just kind of things that you mentioned is, losing state or federal funding for our actual mass transit, system is a huge concern for me as they prioritize, modes of travel such as this that benefit those who can afford to utilize them. So I think that's a huge concern to me. And then also thinking about how this could impact our height requirements around our transit systems, our transit stations. We need to be building, in my opinion, those as dense and high as we possibly can to feed ridership to our links and to our Sunrail system. So that's a big concern of mine. I'll be watching that very closely.
I think the last thing that I want to say is, at this point, I don't think anybody's really down with the idea that a new mode of transportation that is clearly going to serve the smallest group of people that have the most money should come at the cost of anything else in the community. I think that in spite of a lot of narratives that have become popular online, rich people are not trying to exploit everyone and create a system where people have to suffer in order for them to have more. Like, that kind of group thinking doesn't work for any group of people, rich people included. And I'm sure that if we offer the correct opportunities for the stakeholders to all come to the table and take this opportunity for change and turn it into an opportunity for everyone to walk away happy, our county can absolutely be the example for the rest of the nation to follow. Like, we're so lucky to be here.
That's what we're all take away from tonight. We're just so happy, all lucky to be here. Okay, any other thoughts on that before we move along in our agenda? Okay, great discussion. Very interesting stuff. I'm looking forward to hearing more in the future. Okay, so let's move forward on our agenda. Our next item is a TransMAC study proposal update. This is information coming from the chair here for the members of the public who may have not had the opportunity to attend the meeting in which we presented this option. Just kind of a little bit of background. This commission does have the ability to study potential, future transportation improvements, innovations, things that can help our transportation system. We have the ability under the charter to be provided funding by the Board of County Commissioners in order to study certain items within our purview. And the Board of County Commissioners has graciously provided us such money to do this kind of investigation and studies on things. And one thing that I had proposed to TransMAC as something we could consider spending some of our budget on was a potential protected bike lane in the Avalon Park area where I'm a resident for one of our community events. And that bring a lot of traffic down to our downtown area. And there's already existing parking issues and people are already having difficulties getting there and back. And there is an opportunity in that community to kind of enhance our micromobility, being a plan developed and having a good amount of housing and density and trip generation within our community. I thought this would be an excellent chance for TransMAC to study if we provide protected infrastructure for an event that is a big trip generator for the community. Does that result in more use of our existing bike and pedestrian facilities? Does that cut down on traffic? Does that cut down on parking issues? Does that help attendance to the event? So that's kind of all background. And this commission, after I presented the idea initially, did vote to move forward in terms of doing some further investigation of the high-level proposal that I brought to the commission. So the update here this evening, unfortunately, is not a positive one. After conversations that we had with the traffic engineering department, there was concerns about basically to effectuate this one-day protected bike lane, we were going to have to take one of the lanes of travel on Avalon Park Boulevard, which we were aware of. But there is a kind of U-turn in that area by the Publix that we would actually have to take the lane where that U-turn kind of feeds out of. So the people who use that U-turn, which granted is not that many, as a resident, I live there, but there are people that use it, and we would kind of be taking away the ability of those vehicles to use that U-turn. So it was just not something that they thought we could move forward with. So at this time, that idea, unfortunately, will not be moving forward, but I am already considering additional things that I can bring to this commission. I'm no no lack for ideas. Not sure all of them are good ones, but I do anticipate bringing a new idea to this commission sometime soon of a different thing that we can look at to invest our budgetary dollars on, maybe get some more information about the kind of transportation systems that would work better for us here in the county. So that's the update. Any thoughts or questions? I'll just open just in case there is.
Yeah, I think that, and I initially didn't support, but I think the aspect is maybe we need to look at, because there are so many bicyclists, and one actually corralled me this morning, that maybe we need to look at, carry that idea. Is there another location, a similar situation where we can actually put that to test? That's my question. Again, I was not supportive initially, but several bicyclists corralled me, so.
I appreciate that, my fellow cyclists. Any other thoughts or questions? Yeah, go ahead.
So I take it that the Avalon Park PD, as originally approved by Orange County decades ago, there was no requirement imposed on the developer to put bicycle lanes, correct?
I mean, we do have unprotected bicycle lanes on Avalon Park Boulevard that have the lovely strip of paint that's going to protect us from the cars, but that is all we have currently. So this was an idea to kind of see what would happen if we provided protection on those bike lanes for just this one event, to try to deal with some of the traffic and getting people there and back in a different way.
And I take it based on the conversation that I had with my commissioner, and then my experiences there from Waterfall Lakes to Avalon Park, where you live, all the way up to the UCF area. I consider those subdivisions and plan developments donor PDs, because a lot of revenue going to the county come from those communities. And I see the need for something like this on that area of town, because there's a need to be able to provide that safety, because everybody wants to have a bike and be able to move around with it. Me and Lynx, I can tell you that right now, we have an issue because on our bicycle stands in the front, we can only fit 2 of them. Mm-hmm. And I had to be in a situation where at 11 o'clock in the evening, I had to tell no, because Lynx limits me that if I'm not the last bus, I cannot put the 3rd bike inside the bus. I actually got reprimanded by a dispatch because I did that one time and I was not the last bus. So even in mass transit, and I can tell you right now, Gainesville, they have the 3-bike rack. We don't. And the issue perhaps here at Lynx is that we have an issue with the traffic. We have a situation, and I go back, Brett and Brian, I can say this, we need traffic signal priority. Lynx is performing great, but I'm just another car stuck in traffic. So if we have 3 racks for 3 bicycles in our buses, will it increase ridership? Yes. If we allow more space inside the bus for bicycle, yes. I maybe have taken the wrong way the last meeting, right? I felt like a driver where they were taking away my space. And we have an issue with Lynx because we have 1 incident per day, because we're hitting cars out there. As you shorten the space, I have less space. But I see bicycle is something that the electorate right now in this election cycle, they are for it. Anyone running for county commission who talks about being able to improve bicycling, they're going to get their votes. And this is charter amendment voted by the voters, and we all were there. Bicycles, being able to be in the buses and mass transit and being able to expand it with more capacity in the roads, it's a win-win. So I agree, even though we cannot do in Avalon Park, I agree that if anything out there we can do somewhere else, I'm supportive of that too.
Yeah, and also one bit of good news is that, kind of concurrently while this was happening, the county has been studying that Avalon Park Boulevard corridor for potential safety improvements. So there may still something that may come out of this, not necessarily out of this, but we still may see some improvements to our area, which is great because we do see a lot of micromobility currently. One of the great things about living in a planned community such as, I don't live in the Avalon Park community itself, but in that corridor is there are great opportunities to have, all of our school system is within a couple miles for people who live in that corridor. We have commercial, we have a little lacking on the park space, but we do have, and we have our downtown Avalon Park area that has businesses and things like that. So if there were an opportunity for more people to get around safely, I think we would see maybe some actual improvements in safety itself, but also some of the traffic issues, especially happen around school times. So we may still see some. I'm hopeful for that. I'm following that very closely. What's happening at the county with that study, and we'll be advocating for the results and get some because like you said, I know a lot of the residents in Avalon Park feel like they are kind of not given a lot of, I don't know the way to put it. We are kind of on our own out there geographically, but also kind of feel like we're out on our own there, from the county. I feel like a lot of people do feel like we don't get the attention that we deserve over there. I think there's pros and cons. I think many parts of that are true and parts are not, but I think we have opportunities there that are very unique that I think if we can make a safe micromobility environment, that we can really see some good positive change there.
Question to county. Right now, their Vision 2050, is there any requirement on any subdivision they have to provide protected lanes in Vision 2050? Orange Code.
I'm not sure if there's anything in Vision 2050 about that, but we are actively looking at that. So during our resurfacing, we're looking at the opportunity to take some of the width from the travel lane to add that to the bike lane from a development perspective. As developers are coming in, we are asking for shared use paths. As our CIP program, we're also asking for looking to add shared use paths. So whether or not it's in the Vision 2050, I can't answer that, but I know Public Works is actively in every arena that we can looking to accommodate these types of bicycles and other types of micromobility devices.
Lauren, our next meeting will be at Winter Park for
Yes.
D5, my district. I will be having a meeting with the commissioner pretty soon to discuss this, and I think to get more engagement from the public, from the University Boulevard area and Winter Park, I'll be talking, and we're going to promote the whole issue about bicycling. So does the city of Winter Park and Maitland, do they have protected lanes by rule, by code?
That I'm not 100% sure of. I know that we are, actually, that part of one of my comments at the end was going to be on the 19th, we have a Board of County Commissioners meeting where we'll be doing a micromobility presentation. It's a work session, and we'll be discussing some of the things that we're looking forward to do, including policy and ordinance in the county. And what we're hoping to do is work with our regional partners to make it a regional plan. So, as you know, bicyclists and micromobility users may not know what jurisdiction they're in. So it makes sense to have a policy regionally that would include Seminole County and Osceola County, hopefully, so that we have policies in place that we can ensure that we are doing the best that we can to accommodate micromobility devices and bicycles, as well in existing structures, and then also planned development, make sure that those structures are in place.
Great, thank you. And a final note to this board. In fact, you made some comments about this, the e-bike. I see a lot of people with electronic bikes out there. And let me tell you, when they pair up with links, they can go anywhere. I've spoken to them because they ride with me. They're, oh, this is great. It takes me, it's a fully charged, so what they do is they take links to go from point A to B where it's a long drive, right? So to save electricity. But once they make it to the stop, if they're like a 2-mile radius or 3-mile radius, they're having a blast with the e-bikes. And they're using the sidewalks. So yes, we got to continue that conversation too about the e-bikes because they're taking over the bikes themselves. So other than that, I support expansion as a bus driver. I just want the third rack, right? And then please just allow me some space so I can make my moves, my bus. Other than that, I'll be happy. Thank you very much.
All right, sounds good. I think we can get you that, Jose. Well, hopefully we can. Okay, so let's move on to the next item on our agenda, which is a discussion agenda item regarding the supplemental report on recommendations for the fiscal year 2026-2027 proposed transportation capital expenditures to the BCC. That was a mouthful. So just as background for the public, so our primary goal here, or authority within this commission, and one of the reasons it was actually created was to review the proposed transportation expenditures for the following fiscal year for the county, and then make recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners on whether the funding priorities should be applied in the way as presented by the staff, or we should make some changes. So we do that. We begin that budget cycle kind of every January, and by every January, I mean this was the second year we did it, because the second year of the commission. But then coming out of that, those budget hearings we held, we issued a report on March 20th, 2026 to the Board of County Commissioners that contained the final votes of the commission on those proposed expenditures. But kind of because our timeline is a bit compressed and when we have to accomplish all those goals under the charter, last year and this year as well, I'm proposing that we issue a supplemental report to the county commission that other than just the up or down votes, which was given in that initial report, this provides some more context and more thoughts from the commission about how we feel about some of the priorities and some of the projects, why we voted the way we did. I think it provides really additional helpful information to the county commissioners about, kind of how this commission is viewing our budget priorities. So what we have here tonight, and what was made part of the agenda, and I hope every member of the commission had the opportunity to review it, is that proposed supplemental report. And just to kind of that I prepared, just to kind of give you my thought process, and then I'll open up the floor to any comments or questions for me, is I really tried to focus on the questions and the comments that were issued directly by members of the commission during that budget review process. The first report we issued last year, honestly, I go back and review all the budget hearings again to kind of get the questions and feedback from the commission, so that's all fresh in my mind. But I immediately last year I may have been a little strong in taking some of those comments and kind of maybe taking the next step with them as to and kind of interpreting what I thought the commission was getting at with some of the questions and comments. And I received a little pushback from the members of the commission last year, and I really took that to heart. So this year, I really focused on exactly what was said by the commission members themselves and their questions and comments, and kind of stuck to that. So just a couple things that I wanted to mention in the supplemental report here is that on our countywide projects section, I did note there that a lot of the funding for many of the categories within those countywide projects remain the same, but the staff was proposing to allocate nearly $1 million more to our Vision Zero projects. And we've talked a lot about safety here as a commission, so I did want to kind of give a shout out to staff for really doing more investment there in those Vision Zero projects, but while also noting that our Vision Zero plan has over $250 million worth of projects to make our transportation system safer. So though that $1 million is a small number in compared to that $250 million, it does signal, and what I think we have seen here, the desire of staff to really focus on safety. So I did want to shout that out here specifically. And I also mentioned in the section on major projects in regards to the Chuliota Road project, where this commission, for the first time, actually could not reach a majority consensus on whether to recommend approval or denial of the funding for that. And I kind of laid out what some of that conversation was, whether I think the biggest disagreement we had as a commission was whether the need to widen the roadway from State Road 50 on the south end of Chuliota to Tanner Road on the north end had been adequately established by the roadway conceptual analysis. During that conversation, county staff informed the commission that there was a potential to phasing that project with greater prioritization given to the segment closer to State Route 50, and the commission seemed to be a little more open to that. So I kind of want to note that conversation for the commission as well. And I just wanted to give a shout out, and I think I did this several times in the report to the staff here, because I think the staff has really been open to our recommendations. I noted in several locations here within the supplemental report with regard that changes have been made to some of the proposed cross sections to some of our widening projects to provide more space in the bike lane to widen those travel lanes. So I did want to recognize staff for their really openness to the questions and opinions of members of the commission, and have kind of responded in kind to that. So I really wanted to acknowledge that and thank the staff for their work on that as well. And I also just, again, I know staff is working on a 10-year transportation plan to kind of supplement the existing 5-year capital improvement plan for the county and a long-range transportation plan. This new 10-year plan will be focusing on those safety projects within the high-injury corridor, and that's in direct response to kind of questions and comments from this commission here. So accomplishment from us, but again, just so much gratitude from me, and I know also members of the commission as well, to staff for their openness to our thoughts. So that's kind of the background here of how I approach the report, but I did just want to open the floor. And what we're here tonight, as I would like approval of the board here to submit this report to the county commission as the official supplemental report. If we have any changes we would like to see made as to substance here, let's kind of have that conversation here, or any additional like small edits or just typos that I would like the authority on behalf of this commission to make those changes so we can submit to the board. So all that is prelude. I want to open the floor to members of the commission for any thoughts on the supplemental report.
Well, Mr. Chair, I do appreciate you taking the time to pull it together and invest your personal energy in a necessary task for us all to move forward. That being said, I don't have any critical feedback or anything that I feel needs to be changed.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other feedback? I welcome just even feedback as well, because it's something again I intend, as long as I'm on this board and as long as I continue to lead it, I intend to do this to prepare this supplemental report, because I think it's useful for the county commission as well. I hope it is anyway. So I'll welcome any criticism, feedback, because I want to make sure that the goal of this for me is to really represent the will of the commission. So I want to make sure I'm doing that in this report. Okay, great. Okay, so at this time, then, I'm going to make a motion to accept the supplemental report on the recommendations for fiscal year 2026-27 proposed transportation expenditures to the Board of County Commissioner, as well as authorize the chair to correct any scrivener's errors, which honestly I did spot a couple, so I'm going to make a couple edits there, and further authorize the clerk of the board to distribute the report accordingly.
You brought the motion, right?
I brought the motion.
Second.
Okay. Motion by the chair to accept the report, seconded by Member Hoyos. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, wonderful. Okay, so we're going to go, there is another item here on the agenda that's just for informational purposes only with regard to a sunshine meeting that was held on March 5th, 2026 between myself and Vice Chair Moldoff. I believe there are minutes available to that meeting if anyone is interested in looking them up online. We had a lot of great conversation, Zach, on potential budget expenditures and other ideas for the commission moving forward. I hope we can do one of those again in the near future. But that just for everyone's information, everyone's awareness that did occur, and can review the minutes from that meeting if they so choose. Let's go right into member comments then. Does any members of the commission have any general comments on anything they'd like to share with us? Member Hoyos.
I'm in vacation this week and last week, but I still did my job. And last night I went to the union meeting for the Central Florida AFL-CIO Labor Council, which I am a voting member. So eventually I'll be in a position where I'll be making endorsements for county commission and also for mayor. I don't know how legally that will impact my position here, because it will be public. We'll be holding events in the next 90 days that it will be media, and I'll be there voting and so forth, and interviewing the candidates. I have invited a lot of candidates to be at this meeting. Actually, for this meeting, I invited like 5 of them, and 2 of them took the time to write me back and say I cannot be there for all their previous engagements. So they're engaged. I'm getting a lot of feedback from candidates about what we're doing, even though they're not showing up because they had other events. Then yesterday I also went to the GOA Master Plan Workshop, and they're talking about the drones and stuff like that. The fact that 28% of the trips at the airport are Uber, Lyft. And then one engineer told me that part of the study is that they're thinking about moving the Ubers and the Lyfts off-site and for them to be shuttled in. They have a big challenge with cars at the airport. And FAA doesn't like it, because then you are creating a situation where people are going to be late for their flights out. It's bad. I do the 11, which goes to the airport Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And myself, I'm stuck in traffic. I cannot get to the terminal because I'm stuck in traffic, and it's pretty bad sometimes. So I spoke to them. They love us in Goa. And then I also went to the Sunrail TAG meeting, and here's the latest. The Sunrail Sunshine Corridor, it could be up to $3 billion so far. But FDOT told me, and that's as of months ago, it could be more than that. And the issue is that right now, there's no dedicated funding. So I think the public needs to understand that eventually we need money. And And Eric, you were right at that meeting where we had by Pine Hills, where you told the commissioners, there's nothing we can do with the money. Eventually, we need to bring that back. So what I'm doing is I'm trying to educate those who are candidates. Look, please, now we're here because you trust us to be that eventual oversight board. I don't know if we are going to be that oversight board, but I believe that's the question that Mayor Jerry Demings had. Will this TMAC board will be the oversight board if we have dedicated funding? Are we that board 2 years from now if it gets approved, dedicated funding, or are they able to create another oversight board?
Is that a question for me?
Yes.
Oh. I don't know. Brett's up. Okay, he's got something to say. Let's just go to someone who will offer a better answer to this one than the one I was about to give. So, Mr. Brett Blacadar.
Sure. Yeah. When we contemplated the 2022 sales tax, we did have two separate boards, kind of a technical and a citizens oversight board. So we didn't get that far this time around. So that question came up during the charter review. Would TransMAC replace that citizen oversight committee? So that's still a question. It could, but we didn't get that far in the sales tax discussions this year to get to the actual ordinance where we would write in advisory committee. But if they come back in 2028, that is a question. But most likely they're going to have two different oversight boards, most likely if they look at the model. There's discussion if you share it with the cities, how does that work? This board doesn't have city representation, so that would be an outstanding question. But it is something that is possible. It is possible that this TransMAC could serve as that role, but that's still to be determined based on whatever it looks like in the future. But one challenge would be obviously the city representation. If you had a infrastructure tax that involved the city or a charter county tax.
Because right now, when I talk to the unions, the people who are in the community knocking on doors, they notice us team. They think that we're the best board right now in Orange County. Believe me. So we're doing a great job from the point of view of them. Just because they don't show up doesn't mean that they're not agreeing with us. They're telling me off air that, look, you guys are doing a great job. And then anything that we talk about transit and Sunrail and trains, unless we have dedicated funding, nothing's going to happen. They're going to have a nice presentation a year from now for the Sunshine Corridor, and they're going to say, yeah, we can get the grants, but if we don't have dedicated funding, we don't have operational dollars. So I'm trying to bring this to reality. Yeah. Right now we have links, we have Sunrail, we have the tolls. People are trying to find a solution to high gas prices, high toll prices, and they're looking for solutions. And right now we don't have them because we don't have a tool for them to offset their tolls or high gas prices because we just don't have the money. So other than that, that's my member comment for today.
Thank you, Member Hoyos. Any other comments? Vice Chair Moldoff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Once again, Member Hoyos, we're back to we don't have a revenue issue, we have a revenue stream issue, right? We could max out all of our revenue streams and it still wouldn't solve the kind of crises that we're in. There's a couple of things that I'd like to call attention to this week, a kind of mixed bag as a result of my travels across the county. Starting with, I think for anyone who's interested in transportation and what's going on in our county and innovation and how does it intersect with the state, get over by Full Sail and check out what's going on where the state has created buffered bike lanes and there's cleared a bunch of large-scale development that's happening across from Full Sail, and there's a lot of planning that's intended to say, hey, you want to be able to live in a place and just exist on a bike and get all the things you need and get on a bus and get to where you're going. The state has some kind of plans over there for what they're working up. And I think as citizens, it's really easy to just be able to drive down there and go around the area and see like, okay, this is what's happening, right? There's new apartment buildings going up. There's buffered bike lanes. It connects different communities. There's grocery stores and restaurants. Related to that, I think that we really need to get the iDrive corridor down here because of all the innovative things that they've done down there for transportation. And I think for maybe citizens who are looking at what's going on here and feeling like, oh, corporations aren't playing their part and doing enough, that's a great example of private corporations that stepped up and saw a need and decided to self-impose a tax and create a solution. And they're stepping in sync with the county, all these ways that we're innovating to do better. They're trying to be good partners on that. And I think the more that the public is able to understand that business and corporations are not a monolith. There are businesses that do business in a way that really benefits and enhances the quality of life here. And then there are businesses that do business at the expense of our quality of life here. And we should be able to know the difference and talk about them comfortably. And iDrive Corridor is such a great example when it comes to transportation that I feel like we could really do a great service to both the county and the private sector and the citizens, all the stakeholders really, by having them down here to share some more info. And now I'm going to go from like a piece of kind of like shocking and bad news to follow up and end on a good note. Right now, if an 8-year-old walks into a store that sells an e-bike, the store legally has to sell that 8-year-old the e-bike, knowing that that 8-year-old will go out the door, get on it, and die or get hurt or kill someone else. So I think as much as we're doing everything that we can, there's an even bigger crisis that we're not acknowledging simply at the point of commerce, where we can take some immediate steps. And I would be remiss to have figured out and put the pieces together on this and not come down here and say something. It doesn't feel good to like drop that bomb and go, hey, like it's a little bit worse than we even anticipated. Because we all know about the risks at this point. We all understand that a kid hopping on an e-bike before they've learned how to ride a regular bike, and they're already in the midst of cognitive development, not understanding spatial awareness like an adult, able to make those quick decisions and make them correctly every time. It's a recipe for such profound disaster based on the liberties of being able to go out and spend money. And that's like, we shouldn't be in that position. And on a positive note though, I've been working trying to pursue a solution to be able to activate overpasses where there's dead space underneath that's paved and could potentially be activated, where it's shaded and covered from weather, and it can play a lot of value in communities. And I have been going back and forth between FDOT and CFX. Finally, I heard back from CFX this week. It comes down to the city or the county that's controlling the land underneath. So we can absolutely move on this and offer to citizens the support and create some kind of simple system that says, hey, if you have one of these overpasses where you live and it's controlled by CFX, great news. Come to us and let us know how you want to activate it, and we're going to help. Because this is at least one way to get out there and say, it's getting hotter, it's going to be summer, it's tougher for kids to go outside, tougher for parents to say, yeah, let me take a breather for a minute while my kid is outside. And this is a great way for the county to deliver impact immediately, and we could partner with the cities and just be getting it done. So sorry to bring the bad. Hopefully that's also some good, and I know it's also all over the place, so no need to even respond to it, but yeah, thanks.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any other comments?
I just had a question. Could we just review the next 3 months of meetings, like the dates? I just wanted to confirm if we had one in July.
We do not have one in July to answer
that's what
that
I was trying to
direct
remember.
question.
No,
Yeah.
perfect. All right, thank you.
And we'll get to, just since you mentioned, the next meeting is Thursday, June 11th, and as Member Hoyer said, it is in District 5 at their center, the City of Winter Park Community Center at 401 South Park Avenue. So it's our next meeting. There's no meeting in July. And then August we'll be back at the Administration Building downtown, and I know Elizabeth has the date for us.
It's actually at the Innovation Center.
It is not downtown. So this is why I go to them.
Sorry.
Well,
Close to downtown, yes.
Not close enough, I would say, but go ahead. So
And that's August
right.
13th.
I forgot about that. We're going to that. Okay, thank you so much. August 13th.
Yes.
Okay, great. Rod, go ahead.
Just a couple things. One, keying off the aspect of the e-bikes and the electric scooters. The kids are shooting all over the place. We just had a fatal accident. And the aspect, should we as a group be coming up with some ideas and direction and working with the police department, try to monitor this? Kids riding without helmets. I've seen a couple scooters and bikes. They got a little thing to hold their phone in front of them. And those that aren't doing that, they're holding it in one hand and steering. And I've almost been run over, I can't tell how many times. They don't say anything coming up, a little simple thing like bike on the left, runner on the left, something like that, nothing happens. And the other thing, I'm not sure if you all got invited as well, but there's a Vision Zero Zoom on the 20th at noon to 1:15 that I just want to flag. I've signed up for it, and But it's something that I think that Vision Zero course is something that we're working with.
Sure. Yeah, and I'm glad, Zach and Rod, that you brought up e-bikes, and Rod specifically brought up there was, a death, I think late last week or early this week, of a 13-year-old child on a scooter, Moss Park Road near Lake Nona. And be honest, I felt really shaken by that, because I consider myself one of the most passionate supporters of micromobility, around, especially on this border in this county. I truly believe in it as a potential game changer in our transportation system, especially for short trips and last mile connections. But also, so I have that passionate belief, but also as the father of two young kids, ages 8 and 10, who I want to see have the opportunity to get around their community and have a sense of independence and getting around the community and being out with their friends the way I did as a child, riding bikes around with all my friends. So I've kind of really, today was kind of a hard day for me preparing for this meeting and thinking about that, because if you follow the conversation among residents online at all, maybe this is a good thing to get offline once in a while, but there's always been a lot of dialogue, at least in my community, about micromobility. We do see a lot of it in the Avalon Park area, and a lot of unsafe micromobility. But it's almost at this point reached a borderline hysteria, I would say. It kind of dominates the conversation, at least in online spaces that I'm a part of, around transportation. And I just think it was important to me. I went back and looked at a couple of things to kind of reassert some perspective and have a healthy perspective on these things. In 2023, 1,019 kids aged 14 or younger died in car crashes. In 2025, over 1,200 children died via gun violence. From 2017 to 2023, there were 164 electric scooter deaths and only 7 children. In 2024, there were 92 motorized bicycle deaths nationwide. And I say that not to minimize those numbers, because every death is a tragedy. Every death of a child is a tragedy, and what happened to the one of our children of this community earlier this week is a profound tragedy that I felt very impacted by and very affected by. But I think it's important that we maintain a healthy perspective, because we, to a certain extent, as a society, have normalized both death on our roadways and death by other means in a manner that is probably unhealthy, as kind of the cost of doing business in transportation, that people are going to die on our roadways. But the numbers, they're not even close as to how people are dying on our roadways, cars versus electronic micromobility. It is an issue we need to address. We need to make micromobility safe. But one thing that really concerns me is that I think the focus of a lot of people is just straight out banning them. And I think that's the worst thing we could possibly do. We have not provided a safe environment for micromobility yet. I believe wholeheartedly that e-bikes and e-scooters do not belong on sidewalks. We are going too fast for people who are just on the sidewalk walking. But I understand why kids and the parents of kids don't want to be on the roadways when they are unprotected. There might not even be a bike lane for them to use. Or if there is, it's unprotected. It's a strip of pain. By me, it's Avalon Park Boulevard, where it's a 45-mile-an-hour speed limit. I understand why kids are on sidewalks. So we have a lot of work to do in making it safe. But as Lauren mentioned, there is a presentation that's going before the Board of County Commissioners on Tuesday, a work session on maybe on some things that we can do in Orange County to make them safer. We need to pursue those. But I get really concerned about when things like this happen, that it's going to end up in banning what I believe is an essential element of a transportation system that is successful. The safety is a problem that we have to acknowledge and deal with, but micromobility is also a solution to many of our problems of transportation. It is a solution to congestion. 50% of our car trips in this country are 3 miles or less. You can do that on an e-bike and e-scooter in 10, 15 minutes. So if we want to solve congestion issues in here in Orange County, we have to find a way to switch travel modes on those short trips that are half of our trips. As the costs of car ownership rise, both to buy a car, to insure a car, to repair a car, these are affordable mobility devices that people who cannot afford a car or can't drive a car for whatever reason can participate in the transportation system. It is a much more equitable form of transportation than car ownership. For people who are concerned about the environmental impact of cars, by getting people off the roads and onto e-bikes or e-scooters for those short trips, we will have less vehicle emissions. And studies have shown, I think, one of the reasons that I am so passionate about urban planning and community development is because I believe that the way we have built our communities has isolated us from one another. I believe we are seeing some of the societal downstream impacts of that detachment from our fellow citizen. And studies have already shown that micromobility usage among teenagers increases their socialization and makes them more likely to be involved in school-related extracurricular activities. So I believe it's a way to provide kids a sense of independence and also a way for them to promote interactions either at school or with their friends outside of school, and get them out of their house, get them away from social media, get them away from the hours of binging Netflix and all those kinds of things, and get them back with members of their community again and bring people back together. So I just wanted to say here tonight and just talk about kind of how my feelings. I've been feeling very conflicted. Even today I was like, you know what? Should we actually be not banning them outright, but doing some sort of prohibitions? And I don't know quite the answer on that, but I felt the need to kind of dig back into the numbers to, remind myself that this is a major problem. It pales in comparison to the safety of our roadways that are caused by car-dependent transportation systems. So if we make our roadways safer for everyone, we will make them safer for people who are using e-bikes and e-scooters. So, okay. I saw any comments.
Yeah, I do just want to clarify, right? And I'm looking into the camera because I'm talking to the people at home. The first line of defense in this, in preventing kids from dying, is parents, right? The only way that these kids are getting a hold of these e-bikes is when their parents are putting them in a circumstance where they are allowed to get a hold of these e-bikes. And as a parent, if you decide to let your kid get on an e-bike before they've learned how to ride other types of wheels safely and navigate them, not only are you setting your kid up for failure to potentially die, you could potentially be held accountable if your kid kills someone else and go to prison. Just like a woman in California whose kid got on an e-bike, crashed into a senior citizen, the senior citizen fell down, hit his head, died, now the woman's looking at prison. As much as we can appreciate and understand the value of these vehicles, we have to be able to use them responsibly. And if it comes to a point where government has to get involved, that is unfortunate, but it will only be because parents have chosen to allow their kids to go out there. And before we're going to rush to make this a conversation about freedoms and liberties and kids and adults, everyone needs to take a step back and accept that there is very real science to the cognitive development of children and the rate at which they can process spatial information and make decisions. You can go and read all the studies, you can go and dig deep into the research, and you will find that this holds true across human beings throughout time and all around the world. There are kids who can be an exception, but when we think about the standards that we're accepting as a society, when we say as parents, yeah, kids can just get on them, we're setting ourselves up for failure and for catastrophe. And it's important that we have the e-bikes, absolutely, but it's more important that we have them without setting kids up to shoulder the risk. Because it's one thing for us to sit here as adults and be able to compartmentalize all of this. For that poor kid who wound up killing someone on their e-bike, the way that kid's life is going to change now because we were all just so wrapped up in thinking about how exciting it is that the motor runs on a battery instead of gas. That's the adults that we're being right now, essentially, and I think we can all do a lot better.
Yeah, and I want to be perfectly clear as well that I believe that we do need additional regulation. Like, I want to be clear, I am not for the current system that is, frankly, a little bit of a free-for-all. You know, I think it is dangerous. I ride my bike every day. I see these kids out there, you know, operating these things unsafely. There does need to be additional regulation. There does, but I also think we have also set them up for failure as at a societal level, at a government level, with a transportation system that we have provided for them that is unsafe for everyone. I want to be clear that I do believe we need additional regulation. But what I would caution against is what I see is taking the easy way out, which is just banning them. One, I don't think it's going to work. There's too many of them out there right now, right? So you ban them. I think that's really, I think there's no turning back in a certain way that they are out there. So I think it's incumbent upon us to build a better transportation system that protects everyone in it, those driving a car, those driving a bus, those on a skateboard, and those on an e-bike. But I want to be clear, too. I do believe there is a very strong need for additional regulation and government intervention to protect our children. But I see us heading in one direction very quickly now, and that's the direction I want to caution against. Jose, I know you had thoughts to add to it.
Yeah, and I'll be advising Commissioner Kelly Martinez-Senra that for our next meeting in Winter Park to bring that forth as one of our themes for that meeting, micromobility. We'll do that.
I just wanted to comment before the meeting's over is to thank all of you for the time and effort you put into serving in this commission, to our county transportation team that do an incredible job putting it together, and also to our IT team that you pack everything up, you come up, you set us up, other than we're blinded today. But other than that, you guys just do an outstanding job. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Always welcome. Absolutely, Rod. Anything else? Okay, so we will.
Sorry, I can't.
Go right ahead. That's why we're here.
And just to clarify, also, the idea of potentially banning them and then criminalizing the kids as a response, that is entirely unacceptable. Like the idea that we as adults have done all this failure, and now because we want to clean up the mess, we're just going to spank the kids instead of picking up the mess. It's our mess to clean up.
Hear, hear. Okay, let's go to our TransMAC liaison for updates. Lauren.
Hi, yes, I know we only have a couple more minutes, so I'll be quick. I was going to say this, but I think Eric took all my thunder. If the members would like, next month I can repeat the presentation to the board on micromobility, so it gives you an opportunity to see, just in case you can't come, and kind of discuss the micromobility and how we're moving forward. So if that's okay with everyone, we'll go ahead and do that. We have representations from the Florida Department of Health, Orange County Public Schools, as well as the Sheriff's Office will be part of the presentation. So we'll go ahead and do that if that's okay for next month.
Absolutely.
Also, I wanted to advise that, and you touched on it a little bit, we're currently working on a project prioritization policy, as well as the policy language that you had discussed as part of the supplemental report on the I guess looking back at some of the data, specifically the traffic data, if the phases between a project take too long. So as part of that, we are looking to do an August working meeting. So you'll be hearing from Elizabeth about some potential dates. So there'll be a regular August meeting, but we also need to have a working meeting with you to kind of discuss this before we move forward, because there will be a board presentation on it. So, and that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Questions for Lauren?
Does the work meeting include food this time? Do we know?
It may. We'll see.
Really important question, Zach. Thank you. And I'm serious. That's an important question. Any other questions for Lauren? Or any other final comments of commission members for the evening? Okay. I want to thank everyone for attending here in the audience, and all the thousands, probably millions of people watching at home, and we'll go and watch these again in the future. The numbers are really kind of skyrocketing on YouTube, so I think we're all doing a very good job, just like Jose mentioned. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.